So I will just let in a few more people. And I think, all right, so we just have people joining us
Perfect.
and the recording is on. All right, so I will continue where I left off. So I was explaining about the different segments and the different modules of the trip. This is a completely new um, it's a completely new setup for us this year. Um, and each module will be covered in this presentation that we're about to show you. And each module can be booked separately, individually. So as I was saying, we require a minimum number of registrations for each segment, typically between 8 to 10, with a maximum of around 20. The sooner we receive your registrations, the sooner we can lock in bookings to ensure that our prices remain as low as possible. So as I was saying, specifically about Argentina, they can have sudden price increases, which could impact our expenses. And ultimately, of course, the cost of our travel package. So in order to secure the best possible rates, we encourage everyone to think fast. After this meeting, you will receive a link to the registration page. And it's important to note that the deadline to register and lock in early bird prices is March 9th, which is exactly in 1 month from now. So going back to this meeting, the primary focus of this meeting tonight, of course, is Argentina, but we also offer optional extensions to Peru before Argentina and Brazil after the main trip. So these destinations are secondary, but if you're interested, don't hesitate and reach out to me directly, and I will be happy to walk you through those packages. We will cover them in the presentation tonight. Lastly, you may notice in the presentation that the Argentina segment is more flexible compared to, for example, Peru. That's because Peru requires careful planning due to factors such as high altitude or lack of easily accessible kosher accommodations. Buenos Aires, on the other hand, is a comfortable and safe city with a vibrant Jewish community and plenty of kosher dining options, rich cultural experiences, and much more. Our itinerary includes city tours and group hikes and other activities, but we've also built in free time for you to explore and enjoy the city at your own pace. And all of this while keeping the cost of this segment, for example, highly affordable. So with that, I'm happily passing it over to Rabbi Reuven. I'm sorry, we might have lost Rabbi.
Polina, you can hear me?
I can hear you.
The secondary target, Brazil and Peru, they are together or either one apart?
So as you'll see in the presentation, the first segment will be Peru. It's the earliest segment. It starts in the end of June. Then we move on to Buenos Aires. And then after Buenos Aires, it's Brazil.
Okay, so obviously that they're not consequential. Okay, so somebody wants to go.
They're consequential to each other, but
right.
That's the sequence. And the Argentinian segment is actually broken down in two parts. The first one is Buenos Aires, and the second part is Iguazu Falls. So you'll see it when we get there. I'm just worried that I'm not
Oh, Polina, is the trip for adults only or kids as well?
No. Of course, it's for everyone. We've had kids before, and even in like much more intense trips, such as Peru, for example, and kids do wonderfully.
Okay, thanks.
Give me 1 second, because I seem to have lost Reuven. Give
What age kids do you have?
his Zoom shut down, so he will be with us in a minute. I do apologize for this. So the ages of kids. So the youngest I had was my own son. He was the first time we traveled to Peru. I think he was 9 or 10, 9 years old, probably. And we had kids around his age, and we had slightly older kids. We had teenagers with us, and it's actually, I get this question quite a lot, like what is the typical age of the group, and I really cannot answer with one age group, because it seems that we have people from every age group in the group. So we have children, we have young adults, we have teenagers, we have more mature um people. Oh, give me just 1 second. There's more people joining us, and as I'm letting everybody in, I think Reuven has just joined us. Rabbi, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. Hello, everybody. Old faces, new faces. Good to see all of you here. So Polina already made a very nice intro to what we're planning to do. We're gonna show you in a few. We're gonna show you the presentation that we prepared. Of course, you'll be able to have access to the presentation after the meeting, and the meeting itself will be recorded. You're very much welcome to ask questions at the end of this. Just very briefly. Basically, this trip has been planned, like Polina already said. I'm not sure if that segment was recorded, so I just got to add it very briefly as few separate segments. In other words, if, for instance, you're only interested in going to Buenos Aires, you can choose that. Or alternatively, if you're interested in going to Peru, you can do that as well. Or for a change, if you're interested to go to Sunny Rio, which has also been planned, that's another option. So it's basically separate segments that you can choose. If you're willing to take a few segments at the same time, one after the other, they've been planned in such way it's possible as well. Why are we going to South America in the summer? Well, it's going to be very hot in here. It's going to be nice down there. It's actually their winter. For Peru specifically, the Machu Picchu area is only accessible during the high season, which is from late May, June, until pretty much the end of July, beginning of August, which is the dry season in Peru. So it's a perfect time to go there. In terms of the weather, it's going to be nice and mild. We're going to be also doing this, hopefully, this for the first time, because we've been doing Peru a couple of times, and actually was very interested in an exciting trip. We invite people of all ages, but you do need to be somewhat fit, because obviously there's going to be quite a bit of walking, right? So high altitude in Peru, specifically in the mountains, might be an issue, but we got to be staying in a very nice place, which is below 3,000 meters. So technically, you shouldn't have a problem with high altitude. But yes, we got to be in the mountains. And of course, we got to be doing quite a bit of walking. We got to be mainly in Inca sites. We got to be located in a lovely little town right in the midst of the Sacred Valley, which is really fascinating area, very beautiful, and very accessible in terms of the places we're going to be visiting. And those places, of course, include Machu Picchu and a bunch of other very interesting sites, including Cusco, which is also a World Heritage Site. And some more details about the Peru trip will follow. When it comes to Argentina, those who know me, they know I'm a big fan of Argentina. Argentina is something that is very dear to my heart. I don't even know why, but I have a very special passion for Argentina. Argentina is a unique country. It's really a blend of South American passion and European sophistication. And especially Buenos Aires, which is a city of 15 million people or so, home of the largest Jewish community in South America. And one of the cute facts about Buenos Aires Jewish community is that it has over 40 Chabad houses, over 40 kosher restaurants of all sorts and kinds. And it really has a variety to offer in terms of Jewish life as well, not just in terms of the cultural sites. It has over 500 theaters, highest number of philosophers and psychoanalysts in the entire world per capita. So it's a really very interesting, sophisticated place, which in many ways resembles imperial cities of Europe, but has its own very distinct character. And we're going to be visiting Buenos Aires at the time where they're going to be celebrating 9 de Julio, which is their Independence Day. They have 2 Independence Days, actually, 25th of May and 9th of July. So that's a big celebration. It's a time when many Argentinians are back home. Theaters are open. And part of our, so to speak, optional program in the evening will be also visiting, for those people interested, very impressive Teatro Colón, one of the biggest opera venues in the world. Hopefully there's going to be something at the time, because again, it's the winter. Theater season will be on. Another major highlights, of course, a tanga show and the football game. I'm not talking about American football, of course. I'm talking about European football, what they call American soccer. Again, these are the things that are really, really huge attractions, just to understand a little bit of passion of the city and to get into the rhythm of what Buenos Aires stands for. These are going to be additional activities in the evening. We're going to go over the program soon. I'm just giving you some basic idea of what this trip is going to be about. As Polina already said, Jewish Explorer, it's all about exploration with a Jewish twist. So there's going to be kosher food provided at all times. Typically, we include full board Shabbat. And during the week, it's typically 2 meals a day, which is usually breakfast and lunch. If we're going to be on the go, lunch is going to be more like lunchbox, depending on what we're going to be doing during the day. I see some questions there. Polina, maybe you take a look at the chat. By the way, you're welcome to use the chat. We do see the chat. If I'm talking, I may not be able to look at it at all times. So Polina is here to check on the chat. We got to check it after I'm done. We got to answer the questions.
I'm checking off the questions as we go, but I'm also thinking that maybe we should save questions for after the main presentation. And you don't have to type them. You don't have to type them. You can just, we will have a Q&A at the end. So everybody will get a chance to ask their questions directly. But
we are definitely going to check what you write in the chat as well. I see people are writing there, so I just gotta go on, and at some point we will address all the questions. Is that okay? So other attractions in Buenos Aires segment of the trip will include an optional trip to Uruguay across the Rio de la Plata. There's a lovely little city of Colonia, which is a really fun day trip. We're going to be also going into the outskirts of Buenos Aires, into the delta of the Paraná River, which is a lovely place called Tigre, in the outskirts of Buenos Aires. So there'll be some really, really interesting sites to visit. Of course, we're going to be doing the Jewish tour of Buenos Aires. We're going to be doing the general attractions tour. Of other segments that we have on this summer, actually South America is going to be winter, ironically, right? But it's not going to get cold. Buenos Aires, specifically talking of the weather, might get a little cold. The weather might be on average about 10 degrees centigrade, which is about 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It may get a little colder. It may get a little warmer. Just to give you an idea, winter in Tel Aviv. That's more or less what you're going to expect there. As we're going to move on to Iguazu Waterfalls. Iguazu Waterfalls is one of the most spectacular waterfalls in the world with tropical lush greenery. Over there, we're going to be doing a full day of touring of Argentine side, which provides you of about 10 kilometers walking. We're going to be doing it with a tour guide. And again, all our trips are done in such a way that you can choose what level of activity you want to take. In other words, if you do get tired, you don't want to do all 3 circuits, you don't have to do it, right? We will be providing this option. There's going to be a train on Argentinian side of the falls. Here you can have an access to all those different angles, and they're really, really fantastic and very spectacular. And also, there are some other options as well, including the boat, which you can take all the way to the falls. And on Brazilian side, you can also take a helicopter, which of course is not going to be included in the main course, but this is something you can do. We will provide you the cost of the tickets on the Argentinian Brazilian side and the tour guide, and you will have a pretty big degree of flexibility. We'll of course give you all the options as you get there if you're going to be interested. So it's going to be a day on the Argentinian side, a day on the Brazilian side, and we're going to visit some attractions in the Argentinian city of Puerto Iguazu on Argentinian side, where you have the border of the three countries, which are Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina, and some other interesting viewpoints in that little lovely town. Should we continue to Rio? Rio de Janeiro is, of course, also a fascinating city, and it's a city that never sleeps like Buenos Aires. Very different type of vibe, very different type of atmosphere. There's plenty of nature right in the city, including fascinating botanical gardens and including national parks, which are literally within the city limits. Also interested in architecture. We're going to be located, if you choose to join us there for Shabbat, we're going to be located in the heart of the Jewish community, which also happens to be a very interesting area, Copacabana. If you heard of Rio and Rio attractions, you probably heard of Copacabana. It's right on the beach. It's really, really beautiful. There's a Sephardic center right there, and Chabad house, which is also pretty close. They're going to help us with accommodating the kosher part of the trip. So it's going to be really a nice combination of touring with a Jewish component of it and with a pretty big degree of flexibility. In other words, certain attractions you would be able to choose. We're going to have like the basic packet, right, for each segment, plus a number of things that we offer you. If you'd like to take them or not will depend on you. Okay, I think it's probably about time that we move on into the actual presentation, the actual slides,
Sure.
Polina, right?
Sure. Yes, let's go ahead and we're going to start the presentation. You're going to see the pictures, the numbers, and the itineraries.
Sure, join me here.
Reuven, I'm sorry. Do we need visas to Brazil as American citizens?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And actually, it's a question which I don't know the answer to yet. Because if you go to the official website, you're going to see as of April 2025, Brazil will introduce a visa policy to U.S. citizens. That includes the United States, Canada, Australia, that do not require visas to go to Brazil right now. But as of April 2025, according to most current information, Brazilian government will introduce the visas. But this information may change because they did say the same thing a couple of years ago. And each year they decided on extending a non-visa policy. They started talking about it back in 2021, 2022. We were in Brazil last year. We were in Rio last year. We didn't need a visa. What's going to happen
What about
now? Nobody
Argentina?
knows until April, right? They can wait until late March, beginning of April. Only there they're going to announce, let's say, if they want to extend it or not. If they will require a visa, based on the information they have right now, it does appear that it's going to be multiple entry visa, and it may cost up to $120, right? This is based on the information that we have right now. It's quite possible that should he only choose the Iguazu segment, right, on the Brazilian side, there will be a single entry visa or maybe even no visa requirement if you stay on the Argentinian side. We're going to be staying on the Argentinian side. There are direct buses that take you to the Brazilian side. You cross the border. We shall see how it's going to work. We don't really know yet at the moment. This is something that's happening as we talk, right? So as of now, there's no visa until April. In April, it's quite possible they will introduce it. We shall see.
So I just want to add from my end that one of the perks of being a member of this club, I should say, is that we literally guide you every step of the way. So once you sign up or once you register, or even before you register, we have a group chat, and we share all the information with you as it becomes available, and we'll literally tell you step by step what to do. Some decisions, I mean, a lot of decisions we make for you. Some decisions you still have to make, for instance, such as, getting the flights. But we literally tell you when to start shopping around. So you are going to feel...
And we'll provide you with some tips also. What are the good flights, what are not so good flights, and so on and so forth, right? As we get closer, we got to talk about those, It's a little bit different level of, when you're talking about specific logistics for the trip, I guess, as we get closer to it. And we got to talk about those things.
Exactly. So, and people who have traveled with us can attest that you feel being part of this experience will make you feel like a kindergartner.
You feel the warm hand of a Mama Polina.
You feel, well, whatever it is, but we give you the love, and we give you the care that you need to make sure that you travel seamlessly and that everything gets done in a timely way, and that you are 100% informed. So let's with this jump into the presentation. This is our first, this is the opening slide, and I try to fit all of the information on it, including the start date. As you can see, there are prices of each segment. If you can't see them clearly, just look around. They're there, okay? I do apologize if it's not as noticeable as it should be, but I also tried to put a lot of visuals in just to give you the flavor, to let you taste the flavor of the countries that we want to take you to. So let's go right in.
Okay,
Polina, I'm sorry.
Move on to the next slide, I guess. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Couldn't hear that.
I'm driving right now. Will I be able to see those slides after that?
Yes, of course.
Okay, great.
I'm gonna go in my room and I'll watch it from my bed.
You can connect there.
All right. So this is the first slide. Reuven, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I think you can move on to the next one. Here we just have all the segments. We have Peru. We have, as we said, in Peru, there's two areas. There's the mountains and the Amazon jungle, which we haven't done in the past. We're going to be doing it for the first time. We're very excited about Amazon jungle, actually. It's literally a trip into the wilderness where we're going to be staying in one of the eco lodges, and we're going to be experiencing the jungle, the wilderness, which is really, really, really fun experience. We're all looking forward to it if we get enough people for that one. So in Argentina, as we said, it's going to be Buenos Aires and Iguazu Falls, and then we have Rio, which is the last segment. That's Brazil. Okay, I guess let's move on to the next one.
So this is our Peru segment, and it's scheduled to begin on June 25th. You can see the cost of this segment. It's right under the dates, 1,600, and that's including all 9 days. And the last, as you can see, the last 3 days are the Amazon jungle days.
Right. So basically, just to make it clear, right? Obviously, we're not including the flights. Flights are on you. And one of the reasons why it does make sense to book it early is, of course, because you'll be able to secure better prices for flights. There are internal flights. You typically fly, if you choose to go to Peru, you typically fly to Lima. And then there's an internal flight to Cusco, which is a short flight. We pick you up. We provide a transfer. We collect all the information. We pick you up from the airport in Cusco, and we transfer you to our hotel, which is going to be in this lovely little town of Pisac, which is about an hour and a half ride from Cusco Airport. We will be touring the Sacred Valley on our first segment. Let's take a look what happens there. Next slide. Okay, so upon arrival, there's a transfer, as we said. First day is just basically to relax and to enjoy the area. It's really fascinating place there. It's charming. It's very quiet. It's a little holistic space, so to speak. Hotel we were staying in last summer was really, really fascinating. They even had rabbits there in the hotel. It was like really nice place, surrounded by mountains, absolutely serene, quiet, and beautiful.
I also just wanted to add quickly that the reason we chose not to keep our group in Cusco is due to the effect of high altitude. Cusco is higher than Pisac. So in our experience, every 500 meters make a difference. And Pisac has proven to be a much more comfortable living arrangement for
As a rule of thumb, everything that goes below 3,000 meters is usually tolerated well by people, and Pisac is about 2,800, so that's fine. Cusco is already over 3,000 meters, 3,400, 3,300, so that's kind of more steep. And if you stay there for a certain amount of time, you might hit high altitude, which on our trip should not happen really, because we're not going to spend much time in Cusco. We're going to be mainly staying in Pisac. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Here we have the city tour of Cusco. It's a full day tour. We have a bunch of real interesting, Cusco was the capital of the Inca state. So it has plenty of interesting archaeological sites in the city and around the city. We're going to be visiting both. Plenty of interesting and unusual sites. Totally worth it. As we said, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it really is quite a unique experience to spend a day in Cusco. Basically, physical demand is light, although we're going to be doing some walking, but it shouldn't be hard. And one of the important things in Peru in general is to stay very well hydrated. This is also one of the things that helps you to prevent issues with high altitude.
And again, we're going to be providing you with a lot of information prior to the trip and during the trip, making sure that everyone is feeling fine. And as far as the city goes, architecturally, it's just as beautiful as any, medieval European city you'd expect to be, surrounded by stunning, incredible nature. So it really is a gem.
Yeah, one of the unique things about Cusco specifically is that Cusco, during the earthquake in the 20th century, many remains of the Inca sites were uncovered, including the foundations of some of the Inca sites that over the top of them were Christian sites were built over the top of them. So now you can actually see both the Christian sites and the foundations of the original temples, including the Temple of the Sun. So it's really, really interesting and fascinating. Next day is going to be already Friday, so it's a short trip. It's a half-day trip, but it's a trip to a fascinating area where we have the salt mines, traditional Inca salt mines. And you can see the picture here. It looks quite unique. The salt mines in the mountains, surrounded by these beautiful views. It's a half-day trip. We arrive on time before Shabbat, so everybody has time to prepare for very beautiful and quiet Shabbat in Pisac. Okay, so Shabbat in Pisac, what's unique about it, of course, is we're going to provide all the kosher experience there. We work with Chabad House. Last year, there was no Chabad House in Pisac. Unfortunately, after October 7th, they decided, less Israelis started coming. So they decided to limit their operations to Cusco. But we worked with them quite well. We didn't have any problems. Those who traveled with us know that we had plenty of food and we had a very nice experience. This year, it's quite possible they're going to extend the operation back to Pisac. It's going to be even easier for us. But even if not, we know how to work with them. So we're definitely going to have very nice and beautiful experience of Shabbat there. The town itself, town of Pisac, is like kind of a holistic place where plenty of expats are living. There are all sorts of interesting things happening all around the town, all sorts of holistic practices. People live there. Some of them move there permanently, and many of them live in there for months or years. So you get to experience this very unusual place, which kind of has its own community, so to speak, in a setting of the Sacred Valley Mountains, surrounded by those fascinating views. So it's kind of a quiet day to experience Shabbat in a very pleasant, serene atmosphere. It's almost like you're going to a different world, basically. Shabbat in a place like that, Shabbat is all about spirituality. So that is probably one of the most spiritual Shabbats you can ever have anywhere, in my experience. Okay,
Absolutely.
let's move on to
and
the next
we
one.
had, and it wasn't, by the way, it wasn't as quiet as you're describing it, because we had a day packed, a full day packed with activities, meditations, lectures. So
yeah, we had all sorts of things, but they're usually spontaneous. We don't even plan them. There are going to be some local people who will be able to provide us with all sorts of things, and as we get there, we'll be able to find all sorts of things available for us.
Lots of expats in this area, like Reuven said, lots of Israelis, holistic spiritual ayahuasca practices all over the town. So it really is a fascinating place to be.
Just to make it clear, we're not planning ayahuasca specifically on this trip, so don't get scared or don't get freaked out, okay? But for people who are into those things, there are options, just so you know. Day 5, of course, is the highlight. We're going to Machu Picchu, and this trip requires early booking. Peruvian government is very specific. There's a very high level of traffic of people going to Machu Picchu every year. A few million people are going, so it's going to be almost like a passport. You for some reason you're moving on.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
With a presentation. Please go back to slide day 5 with the Machu Picchu. So the travel would involve taking a special tourist train with the panoramic windows, which allows you to really see how the nature changes dramatically from the mountains, the high mountains, into basically Peruvian semi-jungle. Ironically, Machu Picchu is located in a warmer climate and lower in the mountains. So you're going to see the difference. And we're going to be traveling there for a trip to one of the most famous archaeological sites discovered in early 20th century. And of course, it's going to be guided tour of Machu Picchu. We're also going to be staying for quite some time in a little lovely village, which is called Aguascalientes. We get there off the train, providing enough free time depending on the entry times, because entry times are very, very specific. You get your own ticket for Machu Picchu with your name, with your passport number. It's something that Peruvian government is very, very specific about. So we shall see how we go about the specifics of the day. But it's going to be the trip on Machu Picchu itself. We're going to spend a couple of hours, 2-3 hours on the site itself, which gives us enough time to explore the site really well. We're going to spend some time in Aguascalientes, where you have the hot springs and you can enjoy the nature. And we have the panoramic windows special tourist train, which is also kind of an experience in itself. So it's a day really packed with activities. We're going to wake up early in the morning, and it's going to be really, really busy and interesting day. In terms of physical demand, here it says light. Machu Picchu itself has many steps, as some other sites that we're going to be visiting on a Sacred Valley trip the next day. Let's take a look on slide day number 6.
So I just want to add to this, because I had people ask me about reduced mobility, especially when it comes to places like Machu Picchu, which of course you don't want to miss. So let's say you end up on this trip and you have mobility issues. Most of our trips, the planned trips are fit for people with different mobility levels, because we have our own transportation, we have our guides, and we can almost everywhere we can drive with very little or reduced amount of walking. When it comes to Machu Picchu, of course, when you're in Machu Picchu, there's quite a lot of walking to be done. But, and I had this, and I'd like to hear from Rabbi Reuven what he thinks about this. If a person's already on this trip and they want to make the most out of it, in my opinion, you can enter the site, and without walking much further into the site, and at the first lookout, you can see Machu Picchu. And if you have mobility issues, you can end there. You can just stay there, enjoy the incredible view, or come back to the welcome center and wait for the group to return. What do you think about that?
I mean, they are different options. I'd say like this, it really depends on how much person wants to go on a trip like that. And I would say if person is willing to walk and is aware, generally speaking, that the trip involves some walking and is willing to do that, there are options. At some point, if it feels like he cannot continue walking, there are places where a tour guide can tell him he can, wait for the group. And there are various options, but I'm not going to lie to you. It's obviously, you do need to be willing to walk on this particular trip, right? So there are some ups and downs when it comes to those steps that you need to take in Machu Picchu itself. We spent a couple of hours there. There are, like Polina saying, there are ways how you can kind of reduce the level of, climbing. And we're going to be having our own tour guide there, of course, that's going to be accommodating all of these things. But it's going to involve some walking for sure.
And just as a side note, the first time I went to Peru, and my group knew that, I had a broken leg and completely destroyed ACLs and meniscus in my knee. And I was able to walk everywhere. Now, I was walking a lot slower than the group, but I didn't slow anybody down by that much, I hope. And most importantly, I was able to get everywhere, just at a lower pace than everyone else.
Yeah, we also had a question about children joining the trip. So I would say I've personally seen children of all ages joining, the kids of all ages literally joining the trip to Peru, including Machu Picchu. It really depends on how adventurous you are. I would even say little babies can, and I've seen those parents with little babies. I'm not sure how much babies will enjoy the trip. That's a different story. But if you want to go as a family, it's absolutely doable. We had families on this trip, including kids as little as 6 or 7, right, Polina?
No, I think maybe 9 or 8. Well, Isaiah was the youngest, no? Or we had somebody younger than that. If Isaiah was the youngest, I think he was 8 or 9.
I think Malinskis were with us with a younger kid being, what, 8 or?
I think she's the same age as Isaiah.
Okay, so yeah, but it's totally doable. It's totally doable. And it really depends on, it depends on how you travel with your family. If you never take kids with you, then it's a different story. But if you have like an adventurous family that your kids are fine and they're okay to travel to places like this, I would absolutely say that sky's the limit. Many people travel on a trip like that with families, especially that we are not including high altitude. Our first Peru trip did include high altitude trip to the Rainbow Mountains. That is challenging. I got to lie to you. That is challenging. You need to come really well prepared for that trip. We're not doing it this time. So it's very, so to speak, family friendly.
But still, we're going to be talking to you about medicating. If we have a group for Peru this time around, there's going to be a lot of educating to be had before the trip. So even at lower altitudes, lower than the Rainbow Mountain, there's still challenges. And I would say that the primary challenge is really not hiking, as surprising as it may sound, but dealing with altitude. And it's also not, in our experience, it's not connected to the level of physical activity that you're used to. It's really extremely personal. So we had people in incredible shape, who, go to the gym, 6-packs, 8-packs, whatever. And they had the worst problems dealing with altitude. And at the same time, I saw older people, golden age, who were walking up the Rainbow Mountain like it was a breeze for them. So, go figure. There's really no way of telling. This is something you discover when you get there for yourself. And we're there to help you and to tell you how you can mitigate the effects of altitude.
Right. I think point is well taken. Let's just move on. Day 6. So here we have a full day of Sacred Valley tour, which includes also quite a bit of walking, fascinating sites, including Ollantaytambo. And Pisac itself, by the way, is surrounded by the village of Pisac is surrounded by some really fascinating Inca sites, which we're going to be visiting on this trip. You can see some of the pictures here. The sites are really fantastic, and most of them are within the range of 3,000 meters, some higher, some lower. So again, since we are based in Pisac, high altitude is much less of a factor than if, let's say, we would be based in Cusco. Physical demand here, it says it's light, but there's quite a bit of walking. Now, the next part of this trip is going to Amazon, which would involve a local flight. We're going to Puerto Maldonado from Cusco. We don't have to come back to Lima. There's a flight directly from Cusco if you continue with us to the Amazon. So Puerto Maldonado over there, our local tour guide would meet us, and we going straight to the Amazon Lodge. The first day will involve taking a boat, and we're going to be literally surrounded by the Amazon jungle. And we're going to be able to see plenty of interesting animals and plants. Our tour guide will introduce us to them. We'll be staying in the Eco Lodge. Most of the food, kosher, of course, is quite challenging. So most of the food either we will take with us, we will be doing our own breakfast, and it would also involve quite a bit of local fruits and vegetables. So it's going to be kind of on a healthier side. Don't worry, we definitely will provide you with kosher food. So that's for sure is going to happen as well. So here we have a few days in the jungle, 7, 8, and 9. Basically, that includes flight into Puerto Maldonado, pick up from the airport, taking us on transfer, which would include the boat into our lodge right in the middle of the jungle, exploring the jungle full day. Second day is a full day of exploration of the jungle. The third day, we continue to explore the jungle and visiting some local indigenous community, which is also quite fascinating. Learning of some of the traditions, they keep those traditions intact, and going back to Puerto Maldonado, from where we basically finished this trip, this segment, Peruvian segment of the trip, and you choose either you want to go back to Cusco or you're flying straight to Lima, and whatever you're doing next. You want to join us for the Argentina trip, you can spend a day in Lima, a couple of days in Lima, or a couple of days in Cusco, and continue from there on into our next segment, which will be Buenos Aires. So here, by the way, what you see on the picture here is not a theater. It used to be a theater, but now it's one of the most beautiful bookstores in the world, El Ateneo. One of the highlights in Buenos Aires, of course, is visiting all those fascinating, beautiful pieces of fine European architecture, which you have all around the city.
And by the way, I don't remember if you mentioned it, but Buenos Aires has the highest number of bookstores in the world.
Yes, I actually said it has. Yeah, it has quite a few, quite a few records, including that one. So yeah, it's fascinating to find such a cultured European city in the midst of Latin America. The vibe there is quite unique and quite special. You're gonna feel the vibe right away. I haven't seen anybody who doesn't like or doesn't fall in love with the city so far. So you're probably destined to do the same. Buenos Aires segment will involve Shabbat in Buenos Aires. We'll get to that in a few. Will involve the city center tour and the tour of Jewish Buenos Aires, where we're not going to be doing just the formal part of it, which many groups are doing just the formal part. They visit the Jewish museum, they visit the big conservative synagogue, which is a conservative temple, Templo Libertad, which is also a fascinating piece of European architecture, beginning of 20th century. It would involve visiting some real Jewish communities, visiting them and talking to real people, getting to know a little bit of Argentinian Jewish life, which I think is a fascinating part of this trip as well. We will provide options for the night programming. As I said, main programming options will include visit to the tango show. There are many really good, high quality tango shows. Will provide you with some really, really good options. Also, as I said, since it's winter, so the theaters are open, and also the Primera División, the Premier League of Argentinian football is on, so we can get tickets, hopefully, to some really, really good games. visit to the game would involve typically also visit to the museum. Most of those teams are very proud of what they do. The game itself, even if you don't like football, is really a show. They do fireworks, they sing the whole time. So it's an experience which really cannot be duplicated. Even in top European stadiums, you don't have that atmosphere. This is something you only get in South America, and specifically in Argentina. It's enough to mention that Argentina is very proud of being the World Cup champion, as you know. And so that's also one of the really interesting optional activities for the evening. We will also have very special farewell dinner in one of the fancy kosher restaurants. And Shabbat in Buenos Aires, of course, is also a highlight because Buenos Aires is very walkable. So Shabbat wouldn't be just a day for us to rest. We're going to be doing quite a bit of walking. We're going to be located in the northern area of Palermo, where you have plenty of walking options, very beautiful parks, and it's really a very walkable city, especially in winter. In summer, it gets very humid and hot, but in winter, Buenos Aires is very walkable. So it's a perfect really timing for us to visit the city in terms of being able to explore it, and also on Shabbat. So Shabbat won't be just the day when we go to have our meal and we go to visit the shul. Of course, all those things when it comes to visiting synagogues is optional. If you don't want to take those activities, you don't have to. We don't force anything on anybody. But as I said, of course, Jewish component is an important part of what we're doing. And possibly that's one of the reasons you want to go with us. Okay, so another optional activities, which I already mentioned, will be the trip to Colonia across the La Plata River into Uruguay. You don't need a visa to go there. It's a day trip. You've been met on the Uruguayan side with a local tour guide, which will be given the tour in two languages, that's Spanish and English. And on the trip itself, it's a pretty big boat, which also has duty-free and all the facilities. So it's really kind of an interesting trip by itself. We're also going to be visiting the Tigre, which is part of what we're going to be doing, one of our tours, which is really interesting area of Delta. We have all sorts of beautiful, interesting mansions surrounding the Delta area. It's kind of a outskirts of the city, different in terms of architecture, different in terms of vibe. So these are the things we're going to be doing in Buenos Aires. And of course, as I said, there are going to be options. If for whatever reason you don't want to choose one of the evening options that we provide, you can have your free time. You don't have to do it. So like we always do, we provide you with certain level of flexibility. Okay, let's move on to the next segment.
Just a quick side note that for those of you who haven't experienced Shabbat in this way, I can assure you that it's a great way to get to know the locals. Whenever you come to synagogue, and we always come, when we come, we are expected there and invited. So we come as guests, and we meet the locals because usually these Shabbats are, populated with a lot of people, a lot of locals, as well as many travelers. So it's a fascinating experience to get to know the local culture through the locals and the local lifestyle by meeting people from the city.
I would say it's one of the highlights, actually, especially the way we do it. We do it as a group. So you definitely get to experience the vibe of Shabbat, the vibe of the local Jewish community. I 100% agree with you, Polina. I think that's one of the highlights.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And next is, as we said, Iguazu Falls, one of the wonders of the world. You can see here from Argentinian side, you get very, very close to the waterfalls. You have those bridges. There are 3 main circuits. You get to them by taking a train. You get to the site from little town of Puerto Iguazu, where we're going to be taking a local flight from Buenos Aires. On the first day, we typically, depending what time we're going to arrive, we typically do a trip to the place of the free borders, Tres Fronteras, and we have some free time in the evening where we can find a nice little pub. There are all sorts of nice little pubs in that area where we can have a really good experience of some local crafted beers and all sorts of other things they have. Then we have a full day trip of the Argentinian side of the falls. As I said, it's really up to you how much you want to walk. Do you want to do all 3 circuits or not? but we will provide the option, of course, with a guide, because it's easy to get lost, if especially you want to take all 3 circuits, and we will be providing with that option. So physical demand, I would say, if you do take all 3 circuits, it's still light, because the walking itself is easy. You do expect crowds of people, especially at that time, because it's winter. It's the time that many Argentinians go to the falls, as opposed to Buenos Aires, where it's going to be quite chilly.
I think we lost Rabbi Reuven again. Give me 1 second. I do apologize for the technical glitches. All right, he is on his way back, so he'll be with us momentarily. I am trying to answer questions as I receive them, but again, I'm encouraging everyone to save their questions. We're almost at the end of our presentation. It's 10 o'clock. I know people have to get ready for work. So we're almost ready to wrap it up, but we do want to hear your questions. So is Rabbi Reuven back with us? Reuven?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sorry, some logistics, for whatever reason, I got kicked out of the room. And maybe I'm talking too much. Okay, anyhow, so on the Brazilian side, as we said, we will find out what's the situation with the visa. And it's quite possible that there will be some, limitations in terms of the full visa requirements if you only go to Iguazu, especially if you're staying in a hotel in Argentinian side, which we'll be doing. In other words, you don't spend full day in Brazil. You only go there for half the day. One of the highlights of the Brazilian side is, on Argentinian side, you get very, very close to those waterfalls. On the Brazilian side, you see it panoramic view. So it's like totally different experience. That's why we totally recommend spending at least 1 full day on the Argentinian side. And it's a shorter day on the Brazilian side. It's kind of half the day, but you have some other options on the Brazilian side, including not a cheap, but very interesting helicopter flight over the falls, which we did. And I can tell it's one of the highlights. If you compare it with, let's say, helicopter ride over Niagara Falls, which is also cool and interesting, I still would say that what you get to see in Iguazu is just a totally different experience. Because of lush nature, because of like the site itself is extremely photogenic, and the panoramic view and what you get to see from the helicopter is outstanding, including another option on the Brazilian side, which you may choose to do right opposite the park, on the Brazilian Iguazu Park. There's something which you can see, which is the bird park, right? And you can get the ticket to get there and spend an hour and a half in the bird park. Obviously, we will guide you how to do it. We will take you there. We will meet you on the outside, and we'll take you back to the Brazilian Iguazu Park, to the waterfall park, should you choose the option of doing both. And that will be the bus taking you back to our hotel, to our accommodation place in Puerto Iguazu on the Argentinian side. Now, next segment, which is our last segment, is Brazil proper, and that's, of course, the fascinating city of Rio. Let's take a look. Okay, so here we have the last module.
I'm sorry, this question that came up actually goes back to Peru. So let's save it for later.
I suggest let's just take the questions later. I literally got another 3 minutes. We're going to be done with this. I'll talk about Brazil quite quickly. We're going to be staying in a very beautiful area of Copacabana, close to the beach, close to all major attractions. we take safety very seriously. So if Buenos Aires, unless you really looking for trouble, is a safe city, it's very walkable. I wouldn't say that Rio de Janeiro is not safe. Specifically, I would not say that. Otherwise, we wouldn't go there. There are plenty of tourists. There are plenty of tourist police in all the tourist sites, but you do need to be cautious where you're going to in Rio de Janeiro. So we would not recommend you doing a lot of your own touring by yourself in Rio de Janeiro. We'll take your safety very, very seriously. We only got to be going to the sites where it's absolutely safe. And as opposed to Buenos Aires, I would suggest that in Rio, you probably want to be kind of more sticking to the group itinerary. So what we're going to be doing in Rio, we're going to be staying in the Copacabana area. We're going to be visiting. Upon arrival, it's just basically relaxing, taking some time to, explore the Copacabana area, the beach. The beach is very safe. And basically just check into a hotel and experiencing this fascinating atmosphere, which you're going to see right away. It's a very different vibe. It's a very cool and different vibe that Rio provides. It's going to be winter, but it's going to be around 27 to 28 degrees Celsius. So it's literally going to be like summer, like summer in America, right? We're talking about 80s, maybe even 90s, depending on the day. So it's totally a beach weather, right? It's beach weather year round in Rio, and people are on the beach the whole time. And of course, it's like a major scene of concerts and whatnot. So next day, we're going to be doing day 2. We're going to be doing a trip to the most important sites of the city, which is Christ the Redeemer and the Sugarloaf Mountain, one of those mountains that you always see on all their postcards from Rio de Janeiro, of course, Sugarloaf, right? So Monte Azucar. And that involves quite a bit of panoramic viewpoints. You get very interesting panoramic viewpoints in both sides. There's going to be plenty of tourists, going to be quite crowded, but it's absolutely worth it. Then we have an experience of Santa Teresa area, which is kind of very, very different. And that is also touristy, but the Celeron Steps is a pretty modern site. There was some Chilean guy that decided to make it a very colorful and beautiful staircase. So it became kind of a highlight of many trips to the city. And it's right in the middle of real buzzing nightlife area of Santa Teresa. If we're going to go to some places, I think we will for some live music. If in Argentina, live music is mainly tango style music, and obviously in Rio, it's samba style music. It's very different. I would not recommend you doing, those night trips by yourself, just for the sake of your safety. I would suggest you stick to the group itinerary. And if you don't want to go by yourself, obviously you take advice and you tell us where you want to go. Generally speaking, if you go by Uber, it's safe in all tourist areas. Certain places you don't want to be walking at night. The area where we're going to be staying is safe any time of the day. But of course, you need to take some general precautions of, not flashing any expensive jewelry and stuff like that. That's a general recommendation for South America. And for that matter, I would say for many other places around the world. Shabbat will be a fascinating experience. We will get to meet the local community.
Just to put things into back on the timeline, day 4 is Friday. So it means it'll be a half day for excursions. And
right.
The second half is preparation for Shabbat and
right.
Shabbat dinner.
Right. And then we're going to have, obviously, Shabbat program, which is going to be mainly to be in Chabad, but we're also going to have to meet the Sephardic community. We shall see how we're going to organize it, either one of the meals on Shabbat, or we're also going to have a Sunday buffet with them, or maybe both. We shall see. A Sephardic community is also quite interesting and distinct, very proud, very Zionistic. And we get to meet local communities and local Jews, which is a big part of what we're doing. Both places are walkable distance from where we're going to be staying. It's a nice and beautiful tourist area. It's in Copacabana area. And you get to know a little bit of local cuisine, which is different from Argentina, not as heavy on meat, more all sorts of different types of food and different types of bread. They have all sorts of interesting things over there. And even take into account the kosher restrictions, so to speak, I can assure you that we'll get to experience some very, very interesting, cuisine when it comes to Argentina and Brazil, which is also quite different, quite distinct. So last day, basically, we're going to have some free time until you take your flight back. And of course, if you take the Brazil segment, it would probably make more sense to fly back straight from Rio. There are plenty of flights direct to New York or through Sao Paulo. And typically, the price is a little bit cheaper as opposed to if you fly from, let's say, Buenos Aires. That's about it. Let's take the questions, I guess.
Reuven, we're not going to Corcovado?
Yes, that's also part of the trip. It's just basically if you have like a day, if you have like
You
a
didn't say
day
anything.
trip, that's right. It's included. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Corcovado as
Most
well.
important.
Yes, of course. Monte Azucar, Corcovado, and Cristo Redeemer. These are all typical, like a day trip involves all those sites. Yes, it's a full day trip, which would involve all the major attractions of Rio. We're definitely going to do that for sure.
I think we should also
We're
mention
going.
I'm sorry, we should also mention the local flights, right? The fact that some of these, the connecting flights between the different segments of our
right. So the local flights at typical cost is quite low. I'll give an example. Typical flight from Lima to Cusco could be anywhere between $50 to $100, and sometimes it's less. It could be even $40. Same would go for a flight from Buenos Aires to Iguazu. It's about $80 on average. We're talking about one-way rates, right? Flight to Rio de Janeiro from the Brazilian airport, those who choose to stay with us for the Brazilian segment, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be crossing the border from the Argentinian city, getting into the Brazilian airport on the Brazilian side of the waterfalls, which is Foz do Iguaçu, and from there, take a flight to Rio. It's also about the same. It's about $80 on average. My recommendation would be to travel light, because if you do have luggage, usually most of those airlines, they're going to charge you extra for your luggage. So this is one of the things you need to consider when you prepare for the flight. So generally speaking, it makes sense to pack lightly. It makes you kind of more mobile and allows you easier connections when it comes to those flights. And, if you pick more than one segment and you want to go and take some local flights, it would definitely make sense.
And just as a life hack, we've had families travel with us with children, multiple children. And the best thing to do is to get one checked in luggage per family. So if you're a family of 4 or 5, you can easily do with carry-on, which is actually very often carry-on and checked in are the same price. So instead of paying for carry-ons, you have a personal item and you get one checked luggage per family.
It really depends on the airlines. You shall see that our Aerolíneas Argentinas on flights within Argentina, they don't charge you typically for the carry-on at all. In Peru, it depends on what carrier you take. And if you take LATAM, they usually don't charge you. Other airlines do. So that is something that you need to factor into your price, consideration. So we will help you with all of those logistics. You don't need to worry. All the information will be available in the chat. We will provide you some estimates. And of course, there's plenty of search engines. If you have any problem looking for those, we will be able to help you with that as well. Okay, so we include ground costs, as we said, based on 2 meals per day. Shabbat is full board. And we include, as we said, most of the trips. Some of the evening activities are extra. They're optional. And obviously, as we said, flights are on you. So now I think it's time to take some questions now.
So we can maybe
Somebody's
open
asking
up.
here, Leia's asking, can I be added to the WhatsApp group? Of course, Leia, we got to add you to the WhatsApp group. Polina will take care of it, right?
Rowan, question. In the Rio, will we have some free time? Because I have relatives there.
Yes, of course. There will be free time. First of all, the full day trip will end at about, I'd say, about 5:30, 6 o'clock. So it will be time in the evening for you to meet with your relative. On a Friday, Friday, before Shabbat, so not that much time, but Saturday night, you're going to have free time. We will probably suggest people to go to some live music place in Lapa area. That's typically where you have really, really interesting live music scene. But again, it's totally up to you. You can go with us and meet your friend over there, your relative over there, or you can choose to do whatever you want to do, right? So there will be free time. Evenings are typically free.
So we have an important question here about the Jewish perspective on visiting the Christ statue.
So when it comes to Christ statue in Rio, obviously it's not a worship site, and we don't go. That's like we don't go inside. There's no inside of the statue or anything like that. If you have any issues, you don't want to come close. It's well, you know what they are. Few levels. You don't have to go all the way up. You can stay on a middle level, on a lower level. You can just enjoy panoramic views of the city because it's one of those very high points above the city where you can really enjoy beautiful panoramic views. It's really up to you. When it comes to halachic, aspect of it, it's not a worship site. It's just a statue, which is kind of seen as a cultural attraction. But if you do have any concerns with that, that's fine. There are ways to accommodate. We basically giving you time to enjoy the area. We got to drop you off there. We got to show you the way, where to go, how to go up. You don't have to do that. It's really up to you. You can just stay on that level, on a lower level, and just enjoy the panoramic views from there.
Reuven, when you're standing there on the observation deck, you don't see the statue. You can just face the
Absolutely.
panoramic view.
That's what I'm saying. So there are a few levels there, right? It's up to you.
I was there. I was there. I remember. You don't see anything. You don't see the.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly what I'm saying. In other words, it's totally up to you. Okay. We have some more questions? Maybe on the chat, or people want to ask something?
So in the chat, I'm taking care of that, but we're happy to take your questions here in the group.
How much are flights from New York typically?
Flights from New York, that will depend very much on your itinerary, right? Let's say if you go to Peru, and from Peru you continue to Argentina and then you fly back, that will be one price. If you go to Argentina and you want to fly back and forth to Buenos Aires, it's a different price. If you want to go from Argentina and continue in Brazil, ironically or unironically, it can actually be cheaper, about $100 cheaper if, let's say, you go to Buenos Aires and then go back from Rio, right? You can save about $100 on average, right? If you go from Peru and continue to Buenos Aires, they are not expensive flights from Lima to Buenos Aires. So, and flight to Lima from New York is probably by $150 on average per segment cheaper than, let's say, a flight, direct flight from New York to Buenos Aires. So it really would depend on your itinerary, which segments you choose.
Reuven, question. I didn't see any pictures. Where can I download this presentation file?
There will be a link provided on the group chat, right, Polina?
Yeah, yes, of course. So I will send out the link to this presentation. I will post it as soon as this meeting is over. And I will also, as I mentioned in the beginning, for those of you who weren't there, I will have a link for you to register, because essentially we have a month between now and March 9th for early bird registrations. So we are encouraging, I'm just repeating myself, I know I said this before, but it's important to mention it again for those who joined us later, that we are encouraging everyone to register with us as soon as possible in order to lock in our prices. Prices are fluctuating, especially in Argentina. So we want to be able to provide you the lowest rates and the highest quality. So having
when it comes to Argentina, the economy there is getting better now, with Milei being very good friend of Israel, by the way. Milei is doing a huge economic change in the country, but as a result, they become a little bit higher in dollars. So the earlier you secure your spot in the group and pay your deposit, we can send the money, we can secure the price, we can lock in the price, so to speak, in American dollars, right? It's quite possible, that the prices will go up even in American dollars as we get closer to the trip. This is just something to consider.
So people are asking, when will we know if, for example, our Rio segment is happening? We can apply this question to every segment of the trip. So as soon as we have a minimum number of travelers registered, what does it mean registered? Filled out the forms and provided their security deposit of $500. So as soon as we have the minimum number of people registered, we can say that the trip is happening. The minimum number is between 8 and 10, I would say, per
Right, it's between
segment.
8 to 10 people, yes.
Per segment. So if we have 3 people for Peru and 5 people for Buenos Aires, it doesn't count as 8. Just to be clear. Any more
module
questions?
prices are per person, adult and child, same price?
Reuven, do you want to take that?
Yes, there will be some discounts depending, on what kind of discount hotel will provide us. So we typically, yes, we had some discounts for children depending on the age. We typically able to provide discounts for children. We shall see how big is the discount. It probably should be something around $100, $150 per segment, depending on the age of the child. We're talking about a child, let's say 8 years old child, right? We should be able to provide that type of discount for you.
Reuven, if I'm going, for example, for the 2 segments, Argentina and Brazil, will I need to make 2 deposits, right? It's like separate.
Yes. It's 500
And
per
the same.
segment.
Yes, because we need, because we need to deal with hotels in both cities, and we need to send the money. So we cannot use a $500 deposit for both.
If there is the same deadline, or
it is the same deadline, yes. When it comes to early bird special, in other words, the prices you see in this presentation, that's March 9th, yes.
Okay, in case if trip is not happened, the same like Guatemala, you're just sending money back, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, you're not gonna lose your money if the trip is not happening.
You sure you want to go with me? This is your last chance.
You provide a lot of spice, and on South American trip, of course, you want to have your food a little bit spiced with good humor.
We can make some another game.
Yeah, exactly. Like you also provided us with fascinating experience of a little bit of Shtok de Kagda on Shabbat, which we really enjoyed. So absolutely.
Okay, great. So I'm interested of the 2 last segments, Argentina and Brazil.
Sounds great.
Any more questions? Please,
don't forget. I saw there's a few days break between the first and second module.
Yeah, because basically, you see, if you take a look at the calendar, it's going to be Shabbat, and we give you an option to spend the Shabbat. You have a few options. You can either stay in the Sacred Valley, which is Cusco, Pisac area, right? If you take in the Peru segment, you will be familiar with that area already, but maybe you'd like to explore that area a little more. Or, for instance, you can go to Lima and spend Shabbat over there. There's kosher food in Lima as well. There's Chabad house there. And there are some options, some interesting options there. Or maybe you want to come to Buenos Aires and spend Shabbat there before the group comes. And you will have some more time in Buenos Aires. In that case, we'll also provide you with some options where you can go for Shabbat, what can you do for Shabbat, so as not to duplicate what we are doing, because really in Buenos Aires has like plenty of different options what you can do. And, we obviously not going to cover all of them. So yeah, we kind of given you different options here, what you can do on those couple of days in between.
Hi, I noticed that the Peru trip ends on a Thursday.
That's correct.
So would we fly out, let's say, that Thursday night or Friday? Because how long would be the flight? Because would we get back in time for Shabbos?
So that would depend, that would depend on what type of flight you're gonna end up booking. This is something that I cannot answer you right away, because obviously direct flights might be a little bit more expensive. Direct flight should be arriving before Shabbat, but maybe you'll choose some sort of a flight with a stopover somewhere, and then obviously not. But there are plenty of options. As I said, you can spend Shabbat in Lima and choose to fly on Sunday, or let's say for whatever reason you need to be in New York for Shabbos, so they'll be able to fly Thursday night, and then you're gonna make it for Shabbos.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. It's a little bit overwhelming because there's a lot of places to go
Right.
and a number of countries. So I'm just wondering if it's possible to have like a diagram, point to point, and each point identifies the name and the country and the date, so that we can understand and consider possibilities. Because I even wonder how, if you choose not to go in a segment, how you're going to meet up with everybody. It's, I haven't taken a trip like that, so it looks a little bit complex.
Well, it may look complex, but if you got to take a look at the presentation as it's been provided, you're going to see that each day has, pretty clear structure to it. It says what are the places we're going to visit, where we're going to be, and what is the date. And, each model is, as we said, is separate. In other words, shall you choose only a specific model, let's say Buenos Aires, right? You're going to provide us with your trip info. What are the flights you're booking? We will know what time you're arriving, and we'll be able to meet you at the Seiza airport and provide you transfer with some other travelers who got to arrive around the same time to our hotel in Buenos Aires.
So
right?
I think it's a great idea to have a diagram, and I originally intended to do it. If I have time, I will try to add it to the either separate or to the slideshow. But if once you look at the slideshow, when I send it to you, you will be able to see that everything is clearly marked on the slide. So for example, here, it clearly says module 2, and it gives you the dates and it gives you the cost, right?
Right.
So if you go back to the beginning and flip through the slides, you'll be able to see every single module, and there's 4 of them, right?
Right.
Just to make it simple again, the first one is Peru, the second one is Buenos Aires, the third one is the waterfalls, and the fourth one is Rio. That's it.
Well, I took the screenshots during the presentation, and also you said you will be sending it, so I can try to reconstruct it and make some sort of a diagram. But again, when we have a date, we don't know what time is arrival. I don't know time when you leave. People come from different cities.
We will be coordinating this. This is part of our job. So when you make your decision, which segment you are traveling with us, we will be coordinating all the dates and the arrivals and the departures with you. We will be giving you in directions, what day. And also there is
Polina will be collecting flight information from the travelers, and we will arrange the pickup transfer depending on the time of your arrival. We will have that information.
And there is a bit of a level of flexibility, by the way, and wiggle room. So if we have our official day, let's say our first day is here in the case of Buenos Aires, our first official day is July 7th. If you choose to fly on July 6th, that's fine. If you choose to join us on July 8th, that's also fine. The rate for that package is not going to change.
Yeah, the only thing, of course, is if it's an extra night in a hotel, we will have to book you an extra night, which will cost extra. That's the only thing.
But what will change, it will impact our logistics, and we will accommodate you. We will make sure that either you are part of the group if it's the official day of arrival for everyone, or we arrange separate transportation, or we give you the information that you need in order to arrive safely.
Guys, how many Shabbosim for Argentina and Brazil? 2 Shabbosim, right?
That's right. One in Buenos Aires and one in Rio, basically. Yes.
So it's total spent couple weeks, right?
Yeah. That's 7 days in Buenos Aires, 3 days on the waterfalls, and 6 days at Rio. That includes the day of arrival and day of departure.
And also we're going 1 day to Uruguay.
Well, that is part of the 7-day itinerary. In Buenos Aires, there will be an optional trip. If people would choose to go to Uruguay, they will be able to go there. If not, they would not. There will be some other activities provided for the day.
Will you go by yourself, or?
Yeah, I'm sure there will be more than one person who would like to go. But basically, we book you the tickets there's 2 companies that travel on this itinerary, Boquibus, an Argentinian company, and a Uruguayan company. and they have specific schedule for the day. It's a very popular option among Porteños, among citizens of Buenos Aires. You know, they're the ones usually taking the trip, but they also have foreigners going. And on the Uruguayan side, if we have a group, one of us will go with you guys, the Mio Polina, and we will, you know, help you with all the logistics, but they're really, really not complicated. You get to meet your guide on the other side. You get about 2-hour trip, 2-hour walking tour of Colonia. You have some free time, and you just need to pick up, because on your ticket it says what's there, what's your time what's your time of going back on a boat, right? Let's say if it's 7 o'clock, 7 p.m., you need to be there 30 minutes beforehand. So
Well,
one
you're
of us
talking
will
about
go to make sure you don't miss your boat, so to speak, right? If you go on that trip, and you don't get lost or anything like that. But other than that, it's very, very simple. You will have obviously to have your passport. There's migraciones, they take their the stamp. Uruguayans stamp your passport, but it's very quick and very efficient. It's really not it's not a biggie.
It's Colonia del Sacramento, right?
That's correct. It's
I
a
remember it's
lovely little
fair,
town of Portuguese,
ferry, right?
Spanish origin, and also has some connection with Spanish Portuguese Jews. Actually, it's quite interesting.
We will take the ferry, right? I understand.
That's a ferry, which takes about an hour each way. It's a very comfortable ferry with duty free, with the lovely views of Rio de la Plata, and yeah, it's an interesting day trip.
Okay, great. I remember that place.
So wherever you go, you have your luggage with you all the time, or what?
If let's say you're in Buenos Aires, you don't need to take anything to, let's say if you want to take this trip to Uruguay, you only need to take whatever you want to take with you on a day trip. We will provide you with lunch, with a lunch box, right? A kosher lunch. You will have your breakfast in a hotel in Buenos Aires, and whatever you need for the day. I don't know what you need for the day. Maybe a book to read, maybe, because there's going to be free time in Colonia de Sacramento. There's plenty of beautiful places there to enjoy the sunset and whatever. I don't know what you're going to need for the day. We're going to provide you with all the information that's, that what's going to happen. And you choose what you need to go for a day. Every Argentinian would obviously go with a thermos because they're going to drink mate. You're going to see all the Argentinians and Uruguayans there all drinking mate, right? If you want to be like local, you obviously want to take a thermos with you. This is the most important thing for a day trip, right? Because you're going to be drinking mate. If not, maybe, I don't know. What else do you need? A book?
I mean, if you're looking for the least amount of travel involved or least number of flights, then I would say that it would be Buenos Aires. You can just choose that segment of Buenos Aires, and then you don't have to worry about local flights and local transportation.
Yeah, you just go back and forth. You go to Buenos Aires and then you fly back. That's it.
With Peru, we're doing the Amazon, so Peru will involve the first days in the Sacred Valley we're based in one place, but then the last 3 days involve additional travel to the Amazon. And of course, if you want an extended stay in Buenos Aires to the waterfalls, then that will involve some travel, but you can cut that out. So if you don't want to do that, you're welcome to just choose the Buenos Aires segment. And if you want some more, you can add the Rio segment without the waterfalls. So this way you're doing less travel, but you're still getting to see 2 countries.
The prices we have, are they for single or double occupancy? That typically they are for double occupancy. I think it does say on the presentation there's a single surcharge, I believe, right, Polina? I believe it does say on the presentation.
For now on the presentation, we have $100 a surcharge for single occupancy.
That's on average, because hotels do charge more, obviously, for single occupancy.
It's per person per segment.
Per person per segment.
Right. Also, if you're traveling alone, but you would like to be paired up with someone, we can do that. We can help you find if someone else, if we have another person traveling in the group who is also looking to be paired up with somebody to avoid the surcharge, it can be done.
It depends on the gender of my roommate.
It depends on many things, not just not just
I'm
the
not sharing my room with any man.
Are we having some tour guides, local tour guides?
Yes, for sure. Buenos Aires, definitely we're going to meet some local tour guides that will give us a bit of a local perspective on things, Same thing for Rio. And at Iguazu as well, we're going to have, on the Argentinian side, for sure, we're going to have somebody who's going to walk us through the maze, because it's really, if you want to be time efficient and you don't want to miss anything, you want to get all 3 circuits, and there's plenty of people over there. It's logistically requires a tour guide for sure. Because he can really navigate it through the crowds, and there are going to be crowds there. It's high season. And he also can point out this bird. Take a look at this bird. It's a unique bird in its natural habitat. The bird is called whatever, right? Or take a look at this animal over here. It's going to point out all those interesting things that you otherwise would miss. So definitely, yeah, for sure.
Reuven, so from the waterfall, we're going straight to Rio, or we're going back to Buenos Aires?
So that would depend. If you take the waterfall segment, you don't have to go back to Buenos Aires. It's actually going to save you some money.
Because it's right.
You
because
just cross the border
right.
to the Brazilian side airport, which, by the way, is a lovely little airport. They have probably the best Turkish coffee I ever had on the sand. They literally do like the Georgian style, Armenian style coffee, which is fantastic. And we were there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and already we're open. It's a really, really nice little airport on the Brazilian side. You take a flight, which is about an hour and a half flight to Rio. Sometimes it's via São Paulo, sometimes it's a direct flight, and you don't have to go back to Buenos Aires for that. No.
Okay, both of you and Polina, you all going to all 3 segments, right?
Of course.
Please God, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
I think, or maybe I missed if you covered one of the viewers asked a question about tour guides, and I don't know if you mentioned Peru. But Peru, it's not just tour guides. We actually have a team. Usually we work with a team of tour guides.
For sure.
Every single day, because in one day, every day you're in Peru, every day you spend in Peru, in one day you get to see not one site. You get to go not on one tour, but you get to go on 4 or 5 different locations.
Absolutely. And in Peru specifically, logistics are such that we try to travel in relatively small groups. So let's say if we're going to have 20 people on a trip, there's probably going to be 2 minibuses of 10 people each. So you're going to get a high quality experience of a small group tour, almost like individually catering for your needs. This is what we're doing.
Hi, just such a pleasure just to listen to you and like relive some of the Peru experiences, and everything sounds great. I just want to ask if these dates are set in stone and definitely nothing is going to change about them.
Well, I don't think we can move them any time earlier because of the school year, and I'm teaching, so basically the school year is over only towards the end of June. If we can push them a little bit into July, possibility, but I think it's a very good time to do Buenos Aires segment during their celebrations, because it's also quite something to see. You definitely want to be in Buenos Aires on the 9th of July. It's a good idea to be there around that time, even though you have many Argentinians who are off, but that's kind of providing you with a lot of festivities. And if you're into like exploring the town when it's like blooming with life and plenty of activities and everything's happening and plenty of celebrations all around, which is what Buenos Aires is all about, right? You probably want to be there around that time. So when it comes to the particular days that we have, I think they're pretty good. Unless we have a demand, let's say people want to move it a week into July, it's a possibility. We should look into it,
In my case, I have a very narrow window of when I can travel, and actually the dates that Peru is scheduled on, this is like my perfect timing, kind of end of June and early July, but Peru is already done.
Okay, I see.
So I'm just trying to see if there's, if let's say people sign up for one thing, another thing, like what are their, just keep that in mind.
If Peru trip cancels out, because we don't recruit enough people for that segment, then we can move it back a bit, no? We can move
Well, there's
Buenos
potentially
Aires.
maybe there's going to be a high demand in Argentina trip, and we can just do 2 groups to Argentina, which is also a possibility. It's a possibility. We don't want to have like too many people on the same trip. Certainly not more than 25. So if we have more, we're probably going to have like 2 groups back to back, which is a possibility.
I hear.
Yeah, just don't forget where we celebrate last year the 4th of July. Beautiful place.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. That's correct.
So maybe, and this year we're gonna be in Buenos Aires, right?
This year we're going to be in Buenos Aires. We're going to make something interesting for sure. We're going to plan a nice celebration.
Yeah, last year we visited Machu Picchu.
Last year we were singing on the train. I remember that. On a panoramic window train. Yes.
I have a question. I'm just going through the slides of what you displayed, and I don't know, maybe I missed something, but I don't see what's going to happen between the day 7 and 9 is 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July, and then Buenos Aires starts on the 7th of July to 13th. What happens?
Yes, we addressed that question. In other words, a
4th, 5th, and
couple of days
6th?
gap. We addressed that question already. That question was asked, so I just repeat the answer. Basically, you have a weekend, right? Friday and Shabbat, which is your free time. Some people are going to be flying back. Some people want to spend some time. If they take in both segments, they want to spend some time in either Sacred Valley, Cusco, Pisac, or Lima, or they want to fly to Buenos Aires earlier. So all these options are available for them.
And we will help
we
will help you navigate those days. Obviously, you can extend your stay in the hotel you're staying in. You can fly early to Buenos Aires, and again, you can stay in the same hotel the group will be staying when everyone arrives. We will help you figure out your Shabbat plans, and by then you will have already been accustomed to the area and the place you're staying in, so it won't be much of a challenge. It'll be just a pleasant, relaxing, weekend between another major trip, before another major trip.
Mm-hmm. When Shabbat comes, you mentioned Shabbat a number of times. Is that where we actually have a chance to go to service, or what's going to be like?
Absolutely, yes. Again, we're not forcing anybody to go to service, but absolutely, we'll provide that option, 100%. It's definitely on the itinerary. We're going to meet some local Jewish communities. As I said, there will be services provided,
and not
especially
just Shabbat,
for sure in
by
Buenos
the way.
Aires.
In
When
Buenos
it comes to Shabbat and Pesach, in the Sacred Valley, it's mainly us. Like we're the group. Last time we did it, we had very nice bonding Shabbat experience. We had our own minyan. A couple of Chabad guys joined us to help us out with the minyan, but overall it was a fantastic experience. It was an American couple that was also joining us, so we get to meet some other travelers. But we were the backbone of the Shabbat and Pesach. When it comes to Buenos Aires, we're visiting a very Jewish place. It has over 250,000 Jews, right? And just Chabad houses in Buenos Aires, as I said, are over 40. So we will be providing you with some options. We will definitely choose something for the group, but if you would like to go a different place, there are other options available in the walking distance. And there's, like we say, we try to accommodate every single thing here. We have a pretty clear plan of what we're going to be doing, but there's a certain level of flexibility. And if for whatever reason you want to choose a different option for Shabbat, there will be different options as well.
So in total, if one goes all the 4 modules, is there 4 Shabbats, correct?
That's correct. But as we said, as you noticed correctly, there is this free Shabbat between Peru and Argentina, which is like literally, it's up to you. You can spend this Shabbat in Peru, or you can spend it in Buenos Aires. And in each case, we will provide you with advice how you can spend the Shabbat. We will help you. We will link you with the local Jewish community. We will help you to book the accommodation, be it in Buenos Aires, in Lima, or in Cusco. So you'll be well taken care of.
And if, for example, we had people in our past Peru trips who are into maybe more active, even more intense itineraries, and the days of either the interim days or the Shabbat days can also be filled with day trips. So if you're not, for example, if you're not observing Shabbat, then you can easily add another day trip to your itinerary, and it's been done before, and depends where we
As an
are.
Orthodox rabbi, I cannot say that I,
Endorse,
approve of that message, but I do approve people being flexible and
right.
making their own choices.
This message has not been endorsed by an Orthodox rabbi.
No, we need to make it clear. It is a Jewish tour, but we don't tell people what to do.
Yeah, we don't tell people. We have people who are not Jewish in the group. We have people who want to do things in their own way, which is perfectly fine.
Everybody is on his own level of observance. It's not an outreach trip. We do provide everything when it comes to kosher and Shabbat, but people make their own choices. That's basically.
Wait a second. We're not going to baptize anybody? Oh my God.
So I don't know again if we made it clear, but in Peru, in Pisac, where we'll be staying, there is no Jewish center. So there's no synagogue, there's no Chabad house.
Polina, that actually may change because they were, if you remember, having plans to open it for the high season.
Okay.
We're going to be there in a high season. It is quite possible that there will be this year. We shall see the update. But even if nothing will be available like last year, we managed really, really well. And should you choose to stay there for the Shabbat, the group is not there, we will take care of you. Don't worry. So there's an option as well.
By the way, the food is not just kosher, it's farm to table. Everything in Peru is made from scratch because there is no supermarket grocery list that you can shop kosher in Peru. There's almost nothing certified kosher. So everything they use they make from scratch, and it's
Chabad makes their own milk. They milk the cows. They make their own cheese. They make everything, which is pretty fascinating. Actually,
they make their own pitas. That's a whole experience in and of itself, actually, to see how they're.
And we have our own chef Polina that makes nice breakfasts, and my wife is cooking some nice soups and all sorts of other things.
Yeah,
you get
I'm
all
a
sorts of
witness.
extras.
So the prices include internal travel as well on those modules?
No, again, flights are not included in general. So we're only talking about ground costs. Flights are not included.
Okay, but flights inside those countries, I saw some modules, $100, $50, whatever. These are all the flights internal? Is that what happens?
I don't think we provided any prices here for the flights, for the internal flights. I just gave you a basic idea of how much they're going to cost.
Yeah, so it's if you look at the first line here, Lima to Cusco, 150 round trip. RT is round trip. So we are giving you estimates of the costs, just to give you an idea. So these flights are not included in the package, but we also don't know which segments you're going to be taking. So it's up to you to factor them into your overall cost.
But we obviously got to help you with let's say you get some problem with booking a particular flight. We definitely got to help you navigate it. So that's something we do as well.
In the group chat, we always post. Go ahead.
Charging telephone and the ability to get internet? How does that?
Everything will be provided to you. It's all like we said. That's why we have the group chat, because we post regular in preparation for the trip, in the month leading up to the trip.
Yeah, all the logistics like that, like what happens with the SIM cards and stuff like that, we usually post before the trip, as you already made a decision to go in, right? We have all those very specific logistic issues. We address them one by one. We post things, what you need to bring with you, what's the weather going to be like, how to pack light, how to book your flights, what's going to happen with high altitude, how do you need to get prepared for that one, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah,
are you using one tour bureau to book all of the people, or we have individual each for themselves?
No, because
we help you. Like when it comes to your flights, we don't deal with that at all. You do your own bookings. But if you're gonna have any problem, we can help you with that. These days, there's so many search engines. There's really no need to use tour agents for booking the trips. You typically can get a better rate as an individual using all sorts of aggregators like Kayak or like Skyscanner. Or whatever you use, and even Google Flights, they typically give you better options So, but again, if you're gonna have any problems, we'll be happy to help you with that.
What languages do
Okay.
they speak in all these countries?
They speak Spanish.
Spanish?
Russian.
In Argentina, it's a very nice
Portuguese.
Spanish with a
Brazil is
twist of
Portuguese.
Italian.
Except Brazil.
You know, people of Buenos Aires have their own very interesting accent, which is unique to, they call it Rio Platense. It's unique to Uruguay and Buenos Aires. People in Uruguay also speak Rio Platense Spanish.
But also in Peru, they speak indigenous languages as well.
In Peru as well, I speak Quechua, which is the main indigenous language of the country. There's about a couple of dozen of others, which are not as well known.
No English? Anyway?
In Argentina, there's very limited English. They're very proud of their own culture. So a younger generation do speak some English, but you don't typically expect them to speak any English, not even the Uber drivers. So it definitely makes sense to have some basic Spanish. In Brazil, they speak Portuguese, but in Brazil, especially in Rio, they do speak English pretty well. They're not as friendly as in Buenos Aires, but they do speak some English and typically would be able to communicate on some basic level. You shouldn't expect that in Buenos Aires, though.
And
in my experience, Rio de Janeiro is the worst place in the world. They don't want to speak English. They don't want to learn it. It's a huge country. They not even know the Spanish. But in Uruguay,
they don't speak Spanish with you. If you try to give them numbers in Spanish, they would not understand. Like I had an interesting experience. I had to learn all the numbers for the ping in Uber. I had to learn them in Portuguese because they would not understand them in Spanish.
Right, but English level is very low even in Rio de Janeiro.
Well, from my
Uruguay,
experience,
it's a different story.
Experience, you can get by with some English. I understand some very basic English, and at least in Rio they do. But you may have a different experience. But as I said, I don't recommend a lot of individual travel, specifically in Rio, for your safety reasons. If you want to go somewhere, you definitely would have to tell us, because we do take responsibility and we take your safety very, very seriously. We only got to take you to safe places.
And of course, any translator app you have on your phone comes in very handy. People are very patient. Peruvians are extremely kind-natured people, and everyone uses.
And so are Argentinians as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone.
What's the Sorry.
Go ahead.
What's the anti-Semitism, pro-Semitism situation like? Can you walk around wearing kippah and tzitzit, or
so in Peru?
What's the vibe?
Lately, there were some anti-Israel incidents in the area of Cusco where the Jewish community is. So you need to be a little bit more aware of what happened. Last time we went to Peru, the local Chabad rabbi asked me to get, actually Polina, I think, was getting it right for him, some of the security equipment, because actually it was open house, anybody could enter. Many Jewish centers around the world are well defended and well protected. This was not the case in Cusco. It was literally open door policy. I think they're going to change it because there were some, not really particular incidents that happened, but there was some graffitis saying like Israelis go back home or something like that. But typically local people are very friendly. You do have almost like a local community of expats, Israelis in Cusco, living close to Chabad house. And they didn't report any particularly bad incidents that happened to them. But you definitely want to be aware. People do walk wearing, kippot and stuff like that in that area close to Chabad house in Cusco. I haven't seen any issues. When it comes to Pisac is a little place. It's very safe. It's extremely safe. When it comes to Buenos Aires, as I said, it's the only place in the world which has glad kosher McDonald's, including Israel. Israel doesn't have a single one, which is glad kosher. And you have people traveling around Buenos Aires wearing whatever Jewish attributes you want. You see Israeli flags. You haven't seen any single Palestinian flag there. It's the country that is the strongest supporter of Israel as of today. And as of, when Milei took power. So I think they're moving in the right direction politically, and they're definitely very pro-Israel. It doesn't mean you may not encounter any anti-Semitism there. That I would say it's highly unlikely you will. When it comes to Rio, I know Chabad guys are also traveling very openly, wearing their hats and stuff. But community in Rio is much smaller. It's about 10 to 15,000 people, which is still a pretty sizable community, but it's much smaller than in Buenos Aires. We got to be in a very good, safe area. Chabad is located in kind of a gated community area in Copacabana. It's safe. Sephardic shul is also very close, walkable distance, and they have guards at all times. By the way, every single shul in Buenos Aires since the terrible terrorist attack 30 years ago also has security guards. So all those centers, they're well protected. But overall, I think situation when it comes to Jewish life in Argentina, at least especially in Buenos Aires, is very safe. Brazil is decent. It's okay. I don't think that we're reporting any serious accidents or anything that happened in the last few years, to the best of my knowledge.
And in Peru, in my understanding, is that the anti-Semitic pushback is not coming from the locals. It's mostly expats, maybe European like woke kids traveling, American woke kids. That's
they said there were a couple of Chilean guys and a couple of local guys. So it's hard to know really, but they took it seriously. Police took it seriously. So, but again, nothing bad happened so far. Just the graffiti. So, but yeah, definitely you want to be aware of what's happening. I would say since we're staying, the places where we're staying for Shabbat, they're all safe to travel wearing kippah. I would say in general in Brazil, you probably want to be a little bit on higher alert when it comes to your safety. Be aware that you don't travel the wrong places. But otherwise, you should be absolutely safe and fine.
Okay, guys, have a good night. Please don't forget to send a link to that presentation.
Absolutely. It's got to be on the group.
Tonight, we'll send you the recording, we'll send you the presentation and the registration form. I also just wanted to add, as a way of wrapping up, I guess, is that we don't want you to feel overwhelmed with all of this information. We do it step by step. That's how we do it. So first you figure out if you're interested, you talk it over with your family, figure out, look at the calendars, look at the dates, see if it works out for you. Make a decision which segment you want to join. And let's start with that.
Segment or which segments? It could be one or more.
Exactly. Or a combination of segments. After you've committed to going on this trip, then we figure out the logistics, the flights, the local flights, the interim days, if there's any days. It's all done step by step, and we literally lead you hand in hand
through the whole process.
Through the whole process. Every single one of you. This is what we do. And people who have gone on trips with us, they can prove it. I don't know if any of them are here tonight and still here on this call.
Yes, I'm proving.
Thank you.
Do everything step by step, but don't forget to pay first and then do any step
so you want. You make your deposits first, which allows us to move forward.
Yeah, I was right.
And then the rest we will lead you and we will guide
through the entire process, basically.
Through the entire process, to the point that we tell you when is a good time to buy your flights. We monitor the market. We know when the prices are going up and down, and we will tell you, okay, between now and next Wednesday, you should be looking for flights to, Lima. And then in a month's time, we'll tell you, okay, now is the time for you to get the local flight from Lima to Cusco. Okay, so everything will be provided to you. You don't have to figure it all out now. Any more questions before we finish off?
The 8 to 10 people. 8 to 10 people includes 2 of you or not?
No, that's 8 to 10 travelers, not including the organizers.
Okay.
Is there any insurance for the trip?
Insurance you buy by yourself, right? Meaning, like with every agency, you buy a flight separately, you buy your travel insurance separately. It's up to you, whatever you want to buy. We do recommend to get your travel insurance for sure. Like I think every agency would recommend you buying travel insurance. But which one you want to buy? Some people have their insurances with their credit cards. Some have all sorts of other arrangements. Whatever you pick up is up to you. We don't take any responsibility for that, but we definitely recommend you have some sort of a travel insurance, which would cover your medical expenses as well. They're typically not crazy in those countries, but you probably want to play it safe.
Well, what about the deposit? That's 500 per person per module, or per
That's correct.
family?
That's correct.
But some modules are 500 altogether.
Well, in that case, if we're looking at Iguazu segment, yes, I think it's the only module that is $500. But yes, we would require that deposit as well. Specifically over there, it's a high season. Accommodations are getting booked very early. We want to make sure that we can provide you the best options available in the market for a decent price. And so, yes.
So the family of 3, a child who is 9 and 2 adults, they will be in the same room, correct?
If you have, we shall see. We haven't made any arrangements with specific hotels. We shall see the specifics. But typically, what happens, we cannot guarantee. In Peru, very often the case is they don't have triple rooms, right, in those small hotels. But if you would like to get 3 people in the room, we will try to accommodate and make sure that you have it. In Buenos Aires, it's easier to find all sorts of different options when it comes to accommodations, including triple rooms. In Pisac or in Peru in general, in Sacred Valley, typically they have doubles. But we can talk to a hotel once we have a certain number of people booking, and we can try to help you with those accommodations.
Okay. Now, if there are kids going, is it possible to find out the age? Because let's say my son is 9, and it would be nice to know that there's other kids of that age. So, is there any way to share that information?
Yeah, obviously, when we have people registering and booking and paying their deposits, we will definitely have this information available, and we'll be able to link you with other travelers. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay.
my son Isaiah will be coming on the trip, so
They're coming for sure, yeah?
for sure.
Is
Yes.
Boris planning to go?
Most probably, yes.
Okay. And that for all the 3 modules or some of those?
We don't know which modules will be happening. So no, Boris will probably not be there for all 4. No.
But Boris is a big boy.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I met Boris. Okay. But Argentina is most likely one, right?
Yeah. We are, and somebody just wrote in the chat that they're also planning to travel with a 9-year-old child, right? So I'm pretty sure there will be families. I know there's quite a bit of interest in this trip from people with the children. But again, until it actually happens meaning that I have the actual deposits from people, right? Otherwise, we cannot guarantee that it's happening, right? The moment I see, Polina sees that we have those deposits, we know who are the ones that are going, right? That's how it works.
Right. Okay.
I think everybody's tired and wants to go to sleep. Let my people go.
Thank you so much. Have a great
I think
night.
we're going to wrap it up for now. If you have any questions you still want to ask, feel free to use the chat for that.
And obviously, I think we're going to close this in a minute. Obviously, we will send the recording to whoever wants this recording. And more questions should you have, let's say tomorrow you wake up and, I got to ask the question. You can ask those questions on the group. The group chat is open. Try to keep this chat related to the trip specifically. Don't spam, because if you will, at some point we will have to close the group chat. People don't like when they've been spammed and they leave the group. Just keep that in mind. But any group-related, trip-related questions, we'll be very happy to answer. There's a question there, Polina. Can you take a look in the chat?
Sure. So, my son is 9 too, and though not 100%, I guess sure that.
Hi, Irina. Irina, yeah, good to have you with us. So for 9-year-olds, we said that it seems like we're going to have quite a few. But again, we cannot guarantee until we actually see that these people are they registered and they committed. But it does appear like we're going to have quite a few. Okay, my friends, have a good night. Have a wonderful sleep. I'm very excited about this trip or these trips, whatever you want to call them.
Pretty incredible commitment. It's 11 o'clock and we still have 20 people with us. So
yep, nobody wants to go to sleep. People are excited.
Pauline, Borya will join at some point, or he's not coming at all?
Почему? He should be coming. I hope he'll join us in Buenos Aires. Probably not Peru, because he's already done Peru.
Ah, okay. I just was like wondering who gonna entertain my husband.
Well, we have our chief entertainer here, Rabbi Reuven, who's
Well, we have quite a few
asked-
entertainers, not just me. We have quite a few
we have
people who are
Stein. We
going
don't
to
need anyone
entertain the
else.
group really well. I'm sure. I'm sure. We have Aaron.
Trust me, we have enough clowns in the group.
No, I know
Most-
Stein quite well. He's still there. Hi.
Most people speak Russian.
Да, кстати.
Много
I
говорят
think almost like 80 to 90% people will speak Russian, which is typically the case, but not 100%. We always have some English-speaking people, which always add some flavor to the group. So official language of communication is English for that reason, but yeah, there's going to be quite a bit of Russian as well.
But the
Is
tour
there any
guide-
Russian Chabbats over there, or not really?
Well, not officially, but you do have some Russian-speaking people in Buenos Aires that don't really have any official Russian-speaking Chabad there. But
Okay.
you do have some Russian-speaking people in Rio as well. So
Guys-
yeah, but
guys
not
gonna be-
officially Russian Chabad or anything like that. No.
Right.
Guide's gonna be English speaking, right?
Yes, that's the plan for sure, because we have some people who don't speak Russian, and will be really not fair to them, right? If we have Russian-speaking guides.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Reuven.
Yeah, thank you.
Polina.
Pleasure, guys, and we are very excited. Polina and me are very, very excited. Have a good night.
are.
We hope
Good night.
to have a wonderful trip, and thank
Николя,
you for staying with
Thank you.
us.
спасибо.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Всем
Buenas noches.
спасибо огромное. Thank you,
Спокойной
everyone,
ночи.
for being with us tonight. And let's be in touch. Будем связываться уже в группе.
Bye-bye.
Всем счастливо. Всем привет.
Пока.
Пока.
Спокойной ночи. До
Спокойной ночи.
свидания.